What do we really mix to have a full set of the feed we must give in a day? We have many ingredients, over 8. Sometimes we use 7, sometimes we use 8, but we remain within the limits of the demands of the bird. Every time you mix your feed, make sure you don't compromise the demands or the requirement of the bird, because that bird is an industry. Whenever you give it raw materials, you expect a product. So whenever you compromise the raw materials, expect a compromise in the product you will receive. So at all costs, never should you compromise the composition of the feed. For us, we provide proteins, carbohydrates, roughages, minerals, vitamins, and all the bird needs. Our proteins are got from soybean. This is soybean cake. However, it was crushed, and now it is. These are soybean crumbs. Not all soybean you sight your eyes on is supposed to be given as animal feed. This soya is called the oiled soybean. The oiled means they have removed the oil and then they get this product, because that oil makes birds fat. So giving your birds a lot of oil will render them infertile. They won't lay eggs anymore because they become excessively fat. And for laying birds, soybean is given at a rate of 9%. So we put 9% of the soybean or the soya cake into our feed. Next source of protein is this is sunflower cake. However, it was milled and now we have this form of powder. This is also a source of protein, but it also provides roughage because it has got a lot of fiber. So the roughage is important in reducing the fat levels of the bird to recommendation. And also this sunflower is known for yellow yolk. So one of the reasons for a yellow yolk is the sunflower. These are the two basic sources of protein we have. Then the next ingredient is carbohydrates. The biggest source of carbohydrate is maize. This is corn. It was milled and now at this stage we call it broken maize or maize crumbs. This is whole maize. You get maize clean enough without dust and any other foreign materials, and then crush it in a machine so that you can get this form of texture, and it is in local terms, it is called broken maize, but technically this is maize crumbs. They are crumbs of maize. It is a source of protein. It is given at an inclusion of 18.5. Then another source of carbohydrate is the maize bran. It should be maize bran. Of all the ingredients we use, is the most sensitive one. However, people don't want to give it time, but I believe it is the most sensitive one for these reasons. The quality of maize bran on the market keeps on changing. It is fluctuating so much. But whenever you get maize bran, or even before you buy it, make sure you assess its quality. Make sure it is clean. Make sure it is free from any foreign materials, and it should not be brown. Brown maize bran, brown color is one of the signs that the maize bran is not of good quality. Make sure it is dry, clean, and cream. Not brown, but cream in color. Of course, it isn't white, we can all see, but at least cream. It is a source of carbohydrate also, but also it provides some level of some percentage of protein. And we also have lime. Lime is our primary source of calcium. You know, did I mention the inclusion rate for maize bran? No. The inclusion rate for maize bran is 52.5%. This lime is basically good for layers. It is a source of calcium, and its inclusion rate is 10%. There are many other sources of calcium, but for us we choose to use lime because it is readily available and cheap, by the way. And now, the rest of the ingredients you have not had. We have had of protein, calcium, carbohydrates, and so on. All others we have not had are got from the concentrate. The inclusion rate for this concentrate is 5%. The concentrate is also called 5%. People there don't know the names of these concentrates. When you randomly come across a farm and ask him or her what kind of concentrate they use, they will tell you, I use cow dyes. They tell you I use Hendrix. Mention it, those brands. But Hendrix is not a name of a concentrate. Hendrix is the name of a company that makes a concentrate whose name is given on the bag. So this concentrate is called 5%. It is called 5% because its inclusion rates are 5%. Others, we have 20%. It means their inclusion rates are 20%. We have the 10%. Their inclusion rates are 10%. Mention it all. We have not talked about this. This is rice bran. It works nearly the same way as maize bran. So we have it as a backup plan in case maize bran is too expensive or inaccessible. Because I told you maize bran is very sensitive. Sometimes it becomes very expensive. Sometimes the quality is wanting. So whenever we sense any irregularity, maybe in prices or quality or accessibility, we resort to rice bran. However, we cannot include rice bran at 52%, at 52.5% as maize bran because, of course, their nutrient composition is not the same. But whenever maize bran is expensive or inaccessible or of poor quality, we blend the two. We get 50%, we get 50% or 52.5% and we include it, and we add rice bran. So another 50% of the 52.5% will be maize bran. I don't know if people are getting me, but we blend the two. We cannot give it entirely alone because the bird's demands will be compromised. But this one helps us to cut the costs of feeding, but also to limit the effect of poor quality maize bran. The health of the birds has got many parameters. If we talk about bird health, there are many parameters we need to talk about. One of them is disease. Another one is biosecurity, of course, and disease, they rhyme together. And then the other one is stress. The biggest disease or the most common disease is called stress. However, people can hardly be convinced that stress is a disease. But for birds, the most challenging disease is stress. Because sometimes you may not even know whether the birds are stressed or not. You just find out in production when they have dropped. Other common diseases, we have coccidiosis. It is common especially in deep litter systems. It is deemed to be another one of the commonest of the diseases. We have bacterial infections like E. coli, Salmonella, Porarum diseases, and many others. We have Newcastle, though not common if you vaccinate well. We have influenza, Chemuite Chifuba, also very common. We have Marex, not so common. Gumboro is now common nowadays. Basically, those are the diseases that we face. We have faced Newcastle, we have faced influenza, we have faced Gumboro, but to minimum levels. We have faced coccidiosis, but we have been able to fight and win all of them. But why we have been able to win, basically there are two factors. One, biosecurity levels are smart somehow, and also we do smart vaccination. We vaccinate all the vaccinable diseases, and depending or according to the vaccination chart or calendar, we vaccinate against Newcastle, Marex, fall typhoid, avian influenza, fowlpox, and infectious bronchitis, as well as Gumboro. The chart for other diseases ends when the birds start to lay, but for Newcastle and infectious bronchitis, vaccination continues ever after 3 months. However, 3 months is the command of the chart. You can change your vaccination calendar depending on the prevailing circumstances. For example, if you are in an area where people keep birds, where many people are keeping birds, I would urge you to vaccinate every month because there are many chances of contacts with the sick birds. So you could opt to vaccinate every month. Newcastle vaccine is not very expensive. Vaccination, please, does not mean that birds don't fall sick. The birds can fall sick, but their level or capacity to fight and survive infection are higher than when not vaccinated. I've told you, we battled in Newcastle, but we didn't lose any bird to Newcastle. But we had Newcastle for over a month. But we fought it successfully. Basically, we give supportive treatment. You treat the birds according to the signs and symptoms you see, because there's no treatment for Newcastle, but we only give supportive care to the birds. And thank God, we were able to fight and wipe it out. Other diseases can be treated like influenza. There are many drugs that treat influenza like tyrosine drugs, coccidiosis. All sulfur drugs can treat coccidiosis depending, of course there are many brand names, but any drug containing sulfur treats coccidiosis. The biggest challenge or the biggest disease and one of the hardest to manage is stress. Stress is not managed by any drug. Stress is managed by an individual. Sometimes stress can be beyond the individual's capacity to manage because it can be caused by change in the environment. So there is no way you manage environmental changes. You can only come in to mitigate so that you don't get many effects. But in most cases, when you are hit with stress, you can only use vitamins to manage and reduce the stress levels. And also keep the routine. The biggest tool to manage stress is maintaining a routine of activities. Don't change things randomly. If you are to change, the changing should be slowly or gradual. But once you change anything randomly, you stress. Background noise, environmental changes, anything. There are many factors that cause stress. Even feeding programs, whenever they change, you cause some stress levels. But I have found it as one of the biggest challenges among laying birds. And the stress birds will either make a lot of noise or will completely go silent. Going silent means they have even gone beyond stress and now they are into depression. So whenever you observe such such differences or such changes, you can easily begin to find out and zero to a real cause of it. We also manage health of the birds by doing dewormings, and we deworm every after 2 months. However, the recommended program is supposed to be every after 4 to 6 months. But why do we choose to deworm every after 2 months? I told you, you can change depending on the prevailing conditions. Why we deworm after 2 months? Because of the nature of our water. We give these birds dam water, and we are in a cattle corridor. It means that dam receives rain or surface runoff from different places, of which it could drain farm fecal matter into the farm. So we could be at higher risks of getting worms. That's why we choose to deworm more frequently, because of the nature of the water we give to our birds. Another way we manage our health is through feeding. Of course, we feed birds according to their demands. We don't compromise. And by that, we can manage health. We also do prophylactic treatment, that is preventive treatment, that is giving the birds or animals medication even when they are not sick. You get a routine, maybe every after 2 months, you give an antibiotic. Even when birds are not sick, you can do that to prevent any forthcoming diseases. Biosecurity should be at maximum. You have seen at every entrance of this unit there is a foot bath, and the entrances are minimized as much as possible to reduce contacts. But the foot bath is there to disinfect people who are entering so that they don't come with germs and so on. Our unit is enclosed, fully enclosed, not even allowing a straying bird. That is biosecurity. We also don't allow many visitors to come into contact with our birds because of issues of biosecurity. We also desist from eating chicken. We don't eat chicken from any other source. If we want to eat chicken, we can pick from those ones which are not laying, and then eat that. But we don't eat chicken from any other sources. Also, to prevent any chances of disease spread. In summary, I promised you to show you a non-laying bird so that we can contrast it with a laying bird. I'll choose one. What we saw in the laying bird, we had this comb very well pronounced, flexible and purely red. But you can check this. It has regressed. It means it has reduced in size. It is very hard when you touch. It's not as flexible as the other one. And you check, as you can check, it is pale. It's not as red as the other one was. Now, if the camera could allow us, we could also check out this in the pelvic bones. However, unfortunately, they can easily be observed by touching. You can touch and feel, but here the space is very small as compared to the other one. So these are enough signs that a bird is not. Normally, birds which are not laying, birds which have persistently got vices are brought here. This one is called a rehabilitation unit or a rehabilitation center. I don't want to call it a sick bay. I want to call it a rehab, because we don't only bring sick birds, but we bring birds that are behaving contrary to what is supposed to be right. Birds which are not laying, birds which have persistently pecked others. With those, they are individuals that have got vices that are not stopping. We bring them here, give them special care, in simple terms, rehabilitate them. If they go back to normal, we return them. If they don't go back to normal within 6 weeks, we off-lay them off, or we dispose them off by either eating or selling, because this is a business. That bird consumes 150 shillings every day in terms of feed. So if you have 1,000 birds eating and not giving you, it means every day they will eat 150,000. Within a month, they have eaten 4.5 million. If you're in business and you're doing that, we shall doubt your calculations. That's why we have this room. If this bird doesn't respond within 6 weeks, we off-lay it off. The method of off-laying is by judgment. You can off-lay by eating, you can off-lay by selling, or you can even kill and bury. Some birds are too sick and you cannot recommend them for consumption for someone. So we kill or make feed for other animals like dogs and so on. But culling is constantly happening, and we only cull from this unit. There, this one is a rehab. If a hen doesn't rehabilitate within 6 weeks, we cull it and move on with others. To sum up, I have found poultry, specific layers, as a good business worth doing for both elderly and youth. These are our principal products. Whatever we are doing, feed management, stress management, and so on, we are only looking for this thing, the egg. So it happens to be our principal product. So whenever a hen gives us this thing for a day, we don't have any more questions for it. We wait until the next day. So whoever is into the business of layers, whatever you do in 6 months, keeping those birds, this is what you're looking for. And it is sometimes unfortunate that you have struggled for a big time for this egg, and when you get it, you don't handle it with care. I think this should be the most sensitive place, because you already have a product you have worked for over a lot of time. We should handle these eggs with care. For us, we chose this place as our egg store. Every day we bring in eggs for a day's production. We record into our record books and then close off the day. Every day we must have a report of the production, of any comments, of any recommendations we can have for the next 2 days. But at least every day we have a simple report to make. That one gives us a touch into what we should do in the next day. But basically we want to talk about marketing of these eggs. One word for the market could be, it is abundant. The market for eggs is abundant. However, their prices keep on fluctuating, ranging from 9,000 to 11,000. For us, we know and we have agreed that least do we have the capacity to manipulate the prices of eggs. Least do we have the capacity to change the prices of feeds. So we want to concentrate so much onto the things we are in position to manage. And what we concentrate so much on is productivity. We know we can influence how a hen should produce, but we cannot influence how much a tray of eggs will cost. So by influencing egg production or the productivity, we can easily influence the cost of production. For example, if I have 1,000 layers and I am feeding 120 grams every day, that's 120 kilograms. The prices of the feeds, somehow they are unison throughout the country. If I produce at 80%, probably I will have about 27 trays of eggs every day. And if someone produces at 90%, they will have 30 trays every day. The production is different and the input is the same. So the higher the production, the lower the cost of production. So whenever we maximize production, we lower the cost of production. So it means if our hens lay at 90%, on average, if a hen lays at 90%, given the Ugandan market of feeds, it will make 4,000 profit for every tray. If a hen lays at 90%, it must make 4,000 of profit for each tray of egg or of eggs every day. So it means for 90% production, and you are selling your eggs or your tray at 10,000, it means you make 4,000 every day. If you sell at 9,000, you make 3,000 every day. Still for every crate. So 3,000 is not bad money, it is good. But for farmers there, what you should fight on is production maximization. It is what will give you a breakthrough in this business. Otherwise, you cannot produce at 60% and still comfortably sit in business. When should you stock? When should you go into production? Of course, you can produce throughout the year, but there is a better time to begin production. I said before, if you want to enjoy poultry as a business, you should understand, you should have its technical awareness. And technical awareness stretches from production to marketing, masterminding the seasons. Around this time, egg prices are supposed to be low in Uganda. However, for this year, it has been quite different. They have remained friendly to some level. But starting from January until June, the egg prices tend to be high, while the feed prices tend to be low. That is in favor of the farmer. So a good farmer who is very strategic should plan to begin production at the start of January. Then, if you have to start production in January, when should you stock? You should be stocking in July. So if you stock in July, you'll use this part of the year, the last half of the year, in brooding, rearing, and so on. So by the start of January, you're already producing and at a recommended percent, like 90%. You'll move within the first half of the year, comfortably selling eggs highly and getting feeds at a low cost. Believe me, within the first months of production, if you are producing from January to June, you will break through. And then the remainder of the year is for profit. So within the first 6 months, you have collected the amount you invested into the birds. That is breaking through. Then the rest of the time, you have the freedom of the business. So if birds don't work according to you, you can easily offlay them comfortably because you already made a break even earlier on. Otherwise, for you who is willing to start, don't start big. If you are a starter, start small, grow big. Let the project grow its own income. I thank you so much for journeying with us right away from the poultry units, the feeding sections, and all through we have been until now we are closing up. You've been good viewers of the day. Hope to see you next time.